Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be starting a new series on database systems, and keep in mind that this won't be such a such a really advanced database tutorial. It will be just the basics. It will just cover the basics of ER diagram, schema diagram, and some parts of SQL, and that's about it. Yeah, and normalization and all that stuff. So let's get on with it. First, let's give an introduction of database management system. It's just a software package system to facilitate the creation and just to maintain a computerized database. Like, for example, if you have, like, there's Oracle DB. That's a database management system, and it's like you make database there, you create it, you maintain it, you manipulate data, and that's about it. We use usually SQL, but there are lots of many languages like Mongo database, and we're going to be learning about relational database, so that's why we're going to be focusing more on SQL, structured query language. All right. So another part is, why do we prefer database approach? It's because database approach has it's like showed in a table format, and like over file-based approach, database approach is better because it's more like every data is in one place and you can manipulate data easily, and you can, like, there is proper indexing. Like, you can just search data, query the data fast by just because it's numbered in a proper way, like it's indexed in a proper way, proper way. And there's also authorization and security measures that's taken. File-based approach is usually used in, like, when you see Google Maps is such a huge, like, the whole database is so huge, it's not actually stored in a like table format or whatever. It's actually stored in a file-based approach. I know that's really primitive, but what do you do when you have too much data and you can't just maintain it in a table format? That's why Google Map is like the whole data is stored actually in a file-based approach. All right, so we're going to be talking about ER diagram this time. And the ER diagram is like the basic of how to, it's like the planning, it's sort of like a blueprint before before going towards the actual software. So in ER diagram, what do we have is we have a set of like flowchart kind of format. It's like set of boxes and ovals and stuff like that. So we're going to be discussing what each box and what each shape represents. So the first shape that comes out is the the entity. So an entity is like this box here. This is the entity, like a rectangular box. The entity is like one heading in a table. So suppose student is an entity, or even employee. So student is one entity. We can also write another one. Let's write employee. This is employee. So this entity is represented by these rectangular boxes. Now every entity has attributes, like characteristics. So for example, student has a name and ID, like, student ID, and then address and stuff like that, like results and blah blah blah. All right, and employee has maybe social security number, then there is name, of course, and age. Same. I'm just showing you two examples. That's it. So these are like the features or the characteristics of each entity. So we call these attributes, and these are denoted with oval shapes. All right, so these lines join an entity and attribute, and each entity has many attributes. All right, fair enough. Now let's go to the other part. Like, attributes can be three types. There is simple, composite, and multivalued attributes. So a simple attribute is just this: the name, the result, the ID. These are just they have one atomic value. Like, name has, you can't have 2 to 3 names. You can have a whole name, like, for example, Harry Potter, that's one whole name. but you can't have Harry Potter, comma, you have two other names like Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. You can't have 2 to 3 names. You just have one name, and that's it. People, that's your full name. So people call you with that name. And ID is also just one. And then there's result. You just have one result. You can't have multiple results. I mean, you can have multiple results in different courses, but your total ultimate CGPA or GPA is just one number. But there is the second attribute, the second type of attribute that we have. So let's just list it down. We have simple. This is one type of attribute. Second one that we have is composite. Now, what's a composite attribute? Composite attribute is just a division of one attribute. So address can have another property like street name, and then can have zip code, like the state name, the zip code, and then the city, and then the street address, the exact address. Yeah, so there are many divisions of this whole entity address. So there's street name, there's zip code, there's city, there's state, and there's country. So yeah, that's how you divide one attribute into multiple attributes. So this is called composite attribute. It's sort of like a tree structure. All right. So, and then the third one that we have is multi-valued attribute. Multi-valued attribute. So a multi-valued attribute is denoted with double circles. Right. This is like a wrong thing to draw actually. Let's just give one multi-valued attribute here. So it's like double ovals, not circles. So what it denotes is that one attribute can have many values. Like simple attribute has just one value, like one CGPA, one name, one ID, and yeah, it's like things like that. SSN is one value and name and blah blah blah. But multi-valued attribute can have many different like values in one row. Like in a table, when you visualize it as a table, it can have many, like you can just separate it with comma, like A, B, C, D, like different values, lots of values. For example, like let's just show one here. Let's just show this ER diagram. It's a really complicated one. Okay, so there's this picture that we have. So this is one really complicated ER diagram. It looks complicated, but trust me, when you're going to be drawing lots of ER diagrams later on, you're going to think that this is actually a really simple ER diagram. So as I was saying, a multi-valued attribute is denoted with double ovals. So a department, for example, employee belongs to a department. Oh, we'll come to this later, but let's just go to the simple part. A department can have many locations. Like a department can't just be in one location. It can be in many locations. Suppose it's in this country. Suppose the computer science department is also the IT. This is a job, the company. So an IT department may be scattered in New York. One branch is in New York. One is in California, and one is in Washington. So there are like different locations for one department. So it's like it can have different values, so many values. So that's why a multi-valued attribute is denoted like this. So in one row, it can have many values, not one atomic values. Sorry, not one atomic value. So yeah, that's a multi-valued attribute over here. Now let's move on to relationships. All right. So a relationship is denoted by this the diamond shaped thing over here. Let's just rub this out. So suppose we have an attribute called employee, and then we have an attribute called department. Now one employee works for one department. Works for one department. So that's why this is denoted by this diamond shaped thing. All right, and of course it has attributes. I'm not just drawing them here, but this is the whole point. Like this diamond shaped relationship, like it established a relationship between two individual entities. All right, so like when you want to relate employee with department, we use this relationship. Because how is an employee and department related? Of course, because a department has many employees and employees work for departments. Right, and another thing that comes is like when I say one employee works for one department and stuff like that. Now it has like we can actually specify it. So there are three kinds of what you call cardinality ratio: 1 to 1, 1 to many, and many to one. Oh, sorry, and many to many. So n to m or m to n or whatever. 1 to many and many to one is the same thing. So I'm not saying that there are like 4 types. There are actually just 3 types. All right. So in this case, like if it's not specified in the question, you have to apply your own logic and denote what is the cardinality ratio between employee and department. So suppose like if you think it logically, one department has actually a lot of employees, right? So many employees can work for one department, but many departments can't have like just one employee or something like that. So we can write many employees can work for one department. For example, let's look at this diagram. Like employee works for one department. Employee manages one department. Now look at this here. The cardinality ratio is 1 to 1 because one employee, like every department can have only just one manager, right? Like you can't have several managers. Then what's the whole point of manager? Then they can just be employees. They can't be differentiated. So that's why we say one employee works for, also manages one department. All right. Like same here, like many employees can work on many projects. Like one employee can't just be like they can't just be constricted to just one project. One employee can work in several projects at the same time. That's why we're using many to many relationship here. And then same way like this, all the relationships are just denoted like this. Now, as you can see, there's this double line and single line thing that's going on here. But what does that denote? It means that like double line denotes the participation has to be mandatory, and the single line denotes the participation has to be the single line denotes the participation is optional. So when I say many employees work for one department. So in both ways, you can see that the participation is mandatory. Like a department can't be empty; it can't have like 0 employees. And at the same time, an employee can't just stay still and not work anywhere. What's the whole point of being an employee? He or she has to work somewhere. That's why an employee, if he's hired, then he has to work for some department. That's why the participation is mandatory. Now, when you see that there's single line, it means that all the employees don't have to manage. So they like the department, but then the department needs to have one manager at least. Like that's like a mandatory thing. That's why the participation here is mandatory. But all employees do not have to manage a department. That's why it's optional participation. Same here. Again, employees can't just sit ducks like that. Like they can't just be useless and be hired and just sit here in the office and do nothing. So they have to, of course, work on a project. And every employee must have a project. They can't just be, like I said, sitting ducks. So yeah, now we're going to be moving on to the rest of the part for the second video. So stay tuned.